So I come from this from a place of feeling like in my world where I study strategy, one of this sort of the modern father of strategy is Henry Mintzberg. And as I was thinking about, how does strategy get implemented in organizations? You looked at Henry Mintzberg, who kind of evolved from this feeling that early on in strategic management scholarship, strategy was considered almost an obsessive planning fixation, right? Planning was going to be the prescription to get you to your goals. And Mintzberg started there in the 70s, and by the 90s, he discarded a lot of that and said that organizations are changing, they're getting more complicated, and management really is a continuous learning process. And so the idea here is that strategy has evolved from a linear process to a much more continuous learning, what I would describe as a complex kind of continuous process. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Prowl and Hamel in the early 2000s, they're a very well-known pair of strategy scholars, said that complex organizations need to focus on dynamic processes. Core competency, I talk a little bit about the smart teams, hire the best people you can, retain them, train them and retain them, and create this idea of strategic intent and continuous learning as the core principles of an organization. So create opportunities for people to learn, appreciate what they do, delegate as much as you can, and let people kind of step back as a leader and let people do their thing. And then, so that was the signals that were coming out from the field to someone like me from the scholars. And then practitioners also were saying things like, this is a world of rapid change. These are very recent quotes from these guys. This is a world of rapid change. And we're working our business models. The business models that we're familiar with are being disrupted around the world. And this has really accelerated post-pandemic. The way that we do business, and I'm sure that you all are experiencing some of this now, the way that people are doing business is wildly different than it has ever been in the past. And then Gerald, a professor at IMD, said the journey towards Agile is this idea about breaking the success trap. And the success trap is that leaders often say to themselves, why change what we're doing if what we're doing is successful? And the fact of the matter is that the world is moving so fast and business is moving so fast today that if you're not continuously learning, if you're not hiring the best people, if you're not looking ahead, doing environmental scanning and looking ahead and adapting your strategy continuously, that you're going to get run over. And that using agile ways of thinking by launching experiments, piloting new ideas, increasing your investment in those ideas that catch on and that have some ROI, and killing others and growing opportunities is the way organizations and the way businesses will be run in the future. And so that's the basis of how I think about, well, if organizations are so dynamic and the world is moving so quickly, how do we as leaders and managers, how do we cope with that? And so I look to things and I suggest to my students and I suggest to my consulting clients that they look to processes and frameworks that they know, that they're familiar with, and that they know are tried and true and work. And for those of you on this call who are very familiar with Agile principles, this was my default. When I found my business growing quickly, and when I found myself at UVA in the middle of very complicated organizations, what I felt was the most sensible thing to do would be to reach back and look into my toolbox for something that I was familiar with, and Agile was sitting there. So I believe that when you apply the Agile principles to strategy and strategic management, that really is the next wave of how to manage complex organizations. So let's get into that a little bit.